Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Yaakov, I see yesterday your speech was wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to
Very
say it
good.
like it was. Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of Ray.
Yeah. No, I try to capture him. I try to capture him.
But the rest, you know,
He was a wonderful person, really, truly wonderful person. I have my glass of tea, which is perfect for learning.
with Alicia, we spoke Spanish all the time, but
Yes, that's true. I didn't understand a word. Where I grew up in a shul called Anshe Maimed in New York, the older Rabbanim always drank tea when they learned, so I'm trying to emulate it.
okay.
Hello, everybody.
Evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jacob.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I think we left off on page 64, which the Mishnah Berurah was discussing the status of a mezuzah and having marital relations in a room with a mezuzah. I think that's where we left off. We talked about kli b'toch kli regarding the tefillin. So we're on page 64, about halfway down by the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah discusses the status of a mezuzah. When the door to a room is closed, the doorpost with the mezuzah upon it usually remains outside the door. It depends. Sometimes the mezuzah may be inside the room. If that's the case, it too must be covered if relations take place there. The Mishnah Berurah writes that a clear glass covering serves as one covering, but a second one is still necessary unless one fashions the coverings with specific intent that they serve as a kli b'toch kli. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah means here. V'im al mezuzah yesh ksuis chuchis. If the mezuzah is got a glass cover, avsha mezuzah nearest mitoch, and you can see the parchment inside. Afilu hachin nechshavas kisui echad. It's already considered, even though the Berurah is telling us, well, you can see through, you can see it. What kind of kisui is that? Well, it's a box, a covering. So the dai beprisa sudar ala mezuzah. So if you have a glass mezuzah, you have to cover it with another beged so you don't see the mezuzah. That's already considered kli b'toch kli. The atalo mitchazik, because now you can't see it. Let's say you had another glass covering that you're going to hang on your glass mezuzah. That would not work. Even technically, it's got two covers. The mezuzah is nearest bitoichem, but you can see the mezuzah. So the Mishnah Berurah says that's not good. Kasav b'chochmas adam. Just to remind everybody, the chochmas adam was Rav Danzig, who wrote the Chayei Adam in the early 1700s. And his glosses on Yoredeya are the Chochmas Adam. If you remember, we learned Hilchos Mezuzah when we went through Yoredeya. So his comments on that are going to be the Chochmas Adam. His comments on Orach Chaim were the Chayei Adam. And the Chayei Adam was something that was learned by a lot of people. Again, before the Mishnah Berurah was dominant, became the dominant halacha sefer, the Chayei Adam was something that, in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Ayadam or Chashulchan, they were all the Balabatish kind of halachas form. I remember taking the Chayei Adam with me to shul, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. This was before you had the Art Scroll Machzorim, because the Tefillah Zakah that we say before Kol Nidre, and before some people say it even before Musaf, the Tefillah Zakah, that was printed in the Chai Adam. And so people took the Chai Adam to shul on the Yomim Noiraim. Now it's all printed. Now you have Machzorim, but this was before all of that.
I remember learning it before Mishnah Berurah was pretty much,
Exactly.
dominant.
Exactly. The Chai Adam was something we all learned.
Used to be classes in many shuls especially for working people, at night. I remember it as a kid. They'd have
Chai Adam. In Chai Adam.
Yeah.
Right. And Kitzur Shulchan Aruch was absolutely, people had that in their home, and that's what they relied on. If they had a question, they looked in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, clearly. So the Chochmas Adam, nearly the Bein b'mezuzah or Shar Sfarim, im asasa metchila beis kelim, sheichashev echad lekli b'toch kli. The person made a kli that it should be considered a kli b'toch kli, kagon shekarcha mezuzah b'niyah. For example, you wrap the mezuzah in a paper, v'achar kach hinicha b'tik shelo, and then you put it in its the thing that you're going to hang on the wall. It's tick, mutter. Kivin shebetchila, kivin lakach. So that was his kavana to have kli b'toch kli. The explanation for the Mishnah Berurah's first point, that 2 glass coverings do not suffice, is as follows. A cover functions as a physical partition between the space in the room and the holy article, but it also serves to conceal the article from view. A glass cover serves only the first function, and therefore another non-glass cover is necessary if you want to have a mechitza between the mezuzah and what's ever going on in the room.
Ernie?
Yes.
By using the words shar svarim, it seems to imply that you can't have a chumash or a gemara in your bedroom.
Well, you can't, if you're going to have relations there, you got to make sure you put
In a double cover.
kli b'toch kli.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Now we're going to see, Bernie, there's some leniencies. Some are going to say that a cover of a chumash is already a kli, is already its first cover. And therefore, when you put the chumash away into a chest, then that's already considered a kli b'toch kli. Concerning the second point, that one may purposely construct 2 coverings to serve as a kli b'toch kli, the Piskei Tshuva cites dissenting opinions. Piskei Tshuva says, "Yesh cholkin al kviyah zu, v'soifin shekol shebedaitu sheyeh kein tamid tshuv havelei kekisui echad v'klayim." If some say that no, if it's going to be treated like one covering, V'od matzinu pluktus apoiskim le'inyan krichas sefer. Is the binding of a sefer im nechshav lekisui echad im love, is that's considered a covering? Kivin sheyesh od stadim lahakel b'mezuzah. So there's studying to be makel by mezuzah, and v'chein b'sfarim anitfasim, printed svarim, not sefer Torahs. Yesh laharis lahakel b'chol zev amach b'tavalov brach. It says you can be makel that the binding of a book is already considered one cover. V'oron amachzik nafach shel arboim sa, a closet whose volume is at least 40 sa, choylek reshus latzmo, creates its own reshus. V'shuv ein tzarach l'sifrei kodesh d'sham shnei kisuyin. So if you put a chumash in a closet, it doesn't need 2 kisuyin. It's already considered a different reshus. Our closets are more than 40 sa. But if you can see them, if you put them in a closet, it's good to have at least one cover. But maybe that's the binding. If you have a partition, even if the books are standing on, so you've rested that on top of the partition. If you should cover them, but technically you don't have to. It says Hamachmer Toval of Bracha. So according to Piskei Tshuva, Sforim that are closed only need to be covered by one more covering because we may rely upon the opinions that consider the cover to be a covering. In addition, a large bookshelf and a separation 10 tefachim high with Sforim on top ideally should have one covering over it, but even that is not required. The Mishnah Berurah compares the halachic status of intimate relations with this issue of covering holy articles to relieving oneself, which is likely forbidden in front of uncovered tefillin and other holy articles. Today, toilets are normally located in specially partitioned rooms, and there are fewer complications of this nature. But people sometimes are sick, they can't get out of bed, they use a urinal. These are things that you have to consider if you have a svarim or things like that in that room. The Piskei Tshuva notes that contemporary poskim discuss related issues that are common nowadays, such as changing diapers and the like in rooms that have tefillin or svarim in them. He says the poskim already dealt with this issue of changing diapers. Or are they allowed to go to the bathroom there? I guess maybe on a commode. There, you could be lenient if you don't do it on a regular basis. And other additional reasons to be makel. However, you should cover the tefillin or books that are in that room that are not in their normal place. One kisu is enough. People shouldn't walk, young children shouldn't walk around uncovered near holy books. The children's room, to clean them from their feces, or put them on a commode. You can't do this in front of Sfarim. You shouldn't put books there. Unless you put them in a Sfarim shrunk that's at least 40 saw. The other that's why these chests should have doors, or sharkisu, another form of covering. You should have another covering for the mezuzah. Let's say you have two rooms side by side. You open up the door, and in one room you're changing diapers, in the other room you can see tefillin and svarim. Then ein bazeh chash. Ki cheder acher choylek rishus. The different rooms are different rishus. Ve'ein bazeh bizon uzilzul b'kisvei kodesh. So that's a leniency. According to Piskei Tshuvas, there's room to be lenient when necessary to change diapers on a temporary basis in front of svarim or tefillin, but you shouldn't keep svarim or tefillin on a regular basis in a children's room. That's an important halacha. What about if you drop your tefillin? So it should be obvious that one must try to prevent tefillin from falling on the floor, as this is a bizoyon of its kedusha. What happens though if tefillin falls on the floor by accident? The Mogen Avram writes that if they fall without their case, a person should fast. We're talking about when they're not in their case. Now we're going to see what that means. The Mishnah Berurah cites this custom as well, and then citing the Eliyah Rabbah, that where tefillin fall when they are inside their container, one should give a small sum to tzedakah. It means if they're in their tefillin zekel and you drop it, you give tzedakah. If you drop your tefillin on the ground, right, you're holding the tefillin, you drop them, they're not in their sack, the velt fasts. The same when you drop the Sefer Torah, even when the Sefer Torah is in its mantle.
Yep, I think it first says if it's in the bottom, then you can fast. If it's in the bottom and then a tick, I don't know if you have to fast or not.
Well, hang on, Sydney, we're going to get there. Right now, right now from the Magen Avraham and the Mishnah Berurah, it seems that they're learning that if the tefillin are in the zekel, you don't have to fast. You give tzedakah. But if you're holding your tefillin and you drop them, they're not in their thing. That's when the Magen Avraham said the Welt fasts.
Yeah, but is there bottom in the picture that you just said?
I didn't say
You
bottom.
didn't mention anything about the bottom that hold tefillin. You said the tefillin and you said the zekel.
So right now, I think what we've dealt with is you here.
Visual.
Show and tell.
1 second. Susie?
Where's my phone?
Left it in shul. Now the truth comes out.
Susie? What do they do with my tefillins? What do they do with my tefillins? Yeah, somebody touched it. Come on, Susie.
Susie was using it.
Yeah.
Learned that last week.
Susie, I found it. I left it behind my computer. That's where I left it. I'm sorry. Okay, I just want to clarify what Sydney is saying. Okay, so if the tefillin are in our sack, that's what the Mishnah Berurah says, below nartikin. Noagim oilam insanos kishenoifel tefillin miyod al aretz below nartikin, meaning it's not even, you don't have a cover on it. It means this. Your regular tefillin without any cover. If that drops, that's what the Magen Avraham is talking about. Now, Sydney is asking, first of all, what about this little thing? And of course, I think Sydney is asking about your tefillin covers, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think the Magen Avraham, the Mishnah Berurah, the Magen Avraham dealt with if you dropped your tefillin without any cover, and it's not in the sack, it's the tefillin that's on your arm, and you take it off and it drops. But I wanted to read the Mishnah Berurah that hu adin kishenoifel sefer Torah afilu ben artikin, meaning, think about it, we have a mantle in our sefer Torah. So there's an extra chumrah of a sefer Torah, because chas v'shalom when the sefer Torah drops in shul, it's always in a mantle. But even so, you have to fast. That would not be the case of tefillin. Tefillin, if it's in a zekel, like that, it's mantle, you don't have to fast. It's just an extra level of kedusha of a sefer Torah. Ayin belia rabbi shekos of the afilu tefillin ben artikin yitin prutil tzedakah. That's the source. The Eliyahu Rabbah says that if you drop your tefillin, even your tefillin zekel, you should give some tzedakah. Now, Rav Daniel Neustadt writes in the weekly halacha discussion that the black plastic boxes used today to hold tefillin are also considered a case and would exempt one from fasting if the tefillin fell while inside them. So there's now we have the three, everything is covered. If it's in the zekel, you just give tzedakah. If it's naked tefillin, then you may have to fast. We'll see in a minute if that's so. He brings a support that if the plastic, I don't have plastic, I have this, but the plastic boxes that hold our tefillin, if you drop the tefillin that way, he says if tefillin fall to the floor when they are covered, fasting is not required. Even the thin plastic boxes used nowadays for tefillin protectors are sufficient to be considered covers. He cites an oral ruling of Rav Yoshev. Instead of fasting, one should give charity. And he says when they are covered. The Pischei Tshuva cites a widespread contemporary practice to be lenient regarding fasting, even where tefillin fell without their container, and to choose other methods of tshuva. instead. Says the Pischei Teshuvos, B'doras achronim ekev chulshas haguf, we are weaker of body and weaker of spirit. V'nefesh haminig haposhut l'hoyrus shelo lisanis yom sholem. The psak usually is not to fast the whole day. Elachatzi yom, k'she'efser liftos pitstoka, and you can exchange the half day fast for tzedakah. V'sharmine tikunei tshuva, kagon tanis dibur, don't talk. U'lohoisiv b'limit Torah, u'shmira kedusas hatfilin, v'limit hal hilchos tefillin, or studying. Something happened to your tefillin, you should study hilchos tefillin. So everybody holds you don't have to fast if they're in their zekel. Maybe that they were talking about like a carpet. Carpet is a kli. It's very rare that we daven in some place where it's mamish on the floor, without at least a carpet. The Yalkut Yosef, right, the son of the Rav Ovadia, says that the practice today is to be lenient, not to fast. Misha naflu miyadav atfilin shel yadu shel rosh la'aretz, va'afilu im naflu migova shu pachos masar tfachim lakarka. Even if it's within 10 tefachim of the ground. I guess me'ikar adin you should fast. However, everybody's weak. In kasha tanis alav, it's hard for him to fast. Or shimat milimuda misane, or he's not going to learn as well if he fasts. He's a worker, and he's not going to work as well for the owner. Or he's a teacher. Oshu ben yeshiva shetarosom naso, he's a ben Torah. Yifta tainus b'tzedakah. He should redeem the tainus with tzedakah. How much does he say? He says the cost of one meal. V'chupar lo, and therefore it's an atonement for him. If the tefillin were in their protector, then l'chol hadayis tzedakah is enough. Okay. Now we get to the heart of the matter. What is this thing between the Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, Rashi's tefillin? What's the whole machlokes? How are we noyeg today? The mitzvah of tefillin is recorded in the Torah in 4 places. Twice in the book of Shmos, Kadesh li v'haya im yaviacha, which we just had. It's the end of Parshas Bo. Kadesh li kavachar and v'haya kiviacha. And twice in the book of Dvarim, right? Shema Yisrael and Vayam Shemoah. These passages are the same parshios that make up the actual content of the tefillin, about which the Torah states, and it shall be for a sign upon your hand. According to this verse, all 4 of these parshios must be written on parchment and placed inside boxes of the tefillin shel yad and tefillin shel rosh. In the tefillin shel yad, all these are written consecutively on one sheet of parchment. In the tefillin shel rosh, each parsha is written separately and placed in its own compartment. So again, we should visualize that. The tefillin shel yad, it's one piece of parchment, and all the parshas are written there. So, and there's only one compartment in the tefillin shel yad. If you look at your tefillin shel rosh carefully, you'll see that it's built there. It's 4 different compartments. It's 4 different compartments, and therefore there's a parsha in each compartment. These parshas must be written by the sofer in accordance with the sequence in which they appear in the Torah, which l'chora would be the Kadesh Li is the first parsha, then V'haya Kivyacha, then Shema, then V'haya Im Shamoah. But there's discussion within the Gemara regarding the proper positioning of these parshios in the parchment of the tefillin, and this serves as the basis for the later dispute between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam concerning the exact alignment of the tefillin. In this section, we will discuss this debate and the practical halacha concerning which type of tefillin is actually used. So there's a contradiction between two braises in the Gemara Menachos, Lamed Daled Amud Beis, which address the order in which the parshas appear in the tefillin. Torah Baram. Ketzad Soidron. How do you arrange the parshas in the tefillin? Kadesh Li, V'haya Kivyacha Miyamin, those two on the right. Shema, V'hayam Shamoa Misimol. Freit the Gemara Vatanya Ipcha. We have just the opposite. Rabbi Loi Kasha. Kan Miyamina Shel Korei means the one who's standing opposite the person who's putting on the tefillin and reading it. Kan Miyamina Shel Meniach. Or is it referring to the person wearing it? V'hakorei Korei Kesidron. And you read it as the way it appears in the Torah. So according to Rashi, the Gemara's answer means that the passages from Shemot 13 are placed on the right side from the viewpoint of the reader, and the other two are on the left. Says Rashi, Ketzad Soidron, Seder HaNachsana, Kan miyamin shel kor, kan miyamin shel meniach. Kishakor oime keneged meniach. Somebody is standing in front of a person wearing tefillin. Have yamino shel zeh l'shmol shel zeh. Right, this one's right is the left of the other. V'akora korei kasidron. Kaseder shein ksuvim b'toyra mugdam u'muchar. Mugdam u'muchar. You got to write it according to chronology. Hilkachag diktar le'el kadesh v'yakiv yacham yamin. That means mimin shel korei korei. It's talking about a guy facing a guy wearing tefillin is going to be to his right. The hashta kashu korei kedarko miyamin l'smol. He reads from right to left. Nimsa korei kasidron. He's reading the proper way. Like we read Hebrew from right to left. That's a maniach kamar. That's from the viewpoint of the person wearing the tefillin. Who you mean shel korei. Now Tosfos, citing Rabbeinu Tam, explains the Gemara completely in the reverse. Kasha Rabbeinu Tam, damai palginu. Why do we divide these parshios? Why did the Gemara use this language, the two on the right, the two on the left? Rishonim yamin, v'chol acheros mismol. It should say the first one is on the right, the rest flow to the left. O ipcha. The gimel rishonish miyamin, revius mismol. So that's the way, that's why it's a kasha in Tosfos. Tosfos sees it as a kasha. So Rabbeinu Tam has to come up with a reconciliation. Well, first, Rabbeinu Tam, Kadesh v'haya kivyecha miyamin shel korei. The Kadesh and the v'haya has to be to the right of the person reading. U'mismol shel korei havishma mibachutz v'achrei v'hayam shema b'iftim. So here is the nafkamina. On the left side, when the guy's facing the guy wearing the tefillin, Shema has to be to the extreme left, and then the v'haya in the middle. So the haya has to be mibifnim. And now we understand why they're divided, why it says two to the right and two to the left. It says that the reader reads it like in the order, but it's not going to be reading the order because you're going to read Kadesh Vaya, then you're going to come to Vayam Shamo. It's not Kesidron. So Lav Kemosh appears Bekuntras Keseder Sheksuva B'Toira. It's not the way Rashi wrote that it's written the way it's written in the Torah. Mufasher Rabbeinu Tam, the Husima Baraisa indicates it's Sidron. It's the end of the Baraisa. The Komer Shekori Keseder Shemunachim B'Tfilin Mimon L'Smolo. Dainu Kadesh V'Haya, and then V'Hayam Shamoa and Shema. So let us try to better understand the two positions of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. The simple understanding of the Gemara's conclusion, one who reads in order, would seem that the order of the placement of the parshas corresponds to the order of their appearance in the Torah. Kadesh li v'hayakiv yacha shma v'yam shamoa. That's the approach of Rashi. This order begins from the right of the reader, someone standing opposite the one placing the tefillin, so that from the perspective of the one actually placing the tefillin, the parshas are arranged in this sequence from left to right. Right? When I look at my tefillin, I'm let's say a person standing wearing this tefillin, it's going to be the Kadesh li v'haya, Shema, and Vayam Shama. Vayam Shama is going to be the most to the left. Kadesh Li Vayashma Vayam Shama. Like they write here. Correspondingly, from the vantage point of the one putting on the tefillin, right? If you're wearing the tefillin, the order follows the order of the parshos if you read from left to right, right? Kadesh Li Vayakiv Yacha Shema Vayam Shama. Rabbeinu Tam rejects this explanation because according to this arrangement of the parshot, which is based upon the sequence in the Torah, it's hard to understand why the Baraisa specifically describes two groups, Kadesh Li and Vayakiv Yacha on the right, and Shema Vayam Shema on the left. According to Rashi, it should have simply presented the four parshas in order without any need to mention a group on the right and a group on the left. So Rabbeinu Tam therefore explains that the parshas are indeed separated into two groups. The first group, Kadesh Li and Vayakiv Yacha, is arranged starting from the reader's right, from the outside inward. The second group, Shema Vaya, begins from the reader's left, which is also from the outside inwards. That means when you're looking at the tefillin head on, it's reading from outside in, and also on this side, it's reading from outside in. So it's Kadesh Li Vahaya and Shema Vahayam Shamoa. That's the sheet of Rabbeinu Tam. Accordingly, when arranged according to the position of Rabbeinu Tam, from the vantage point of the reader, the parshas appear as Shema Vayam Shamoa and Kadesh Li Vayakiv Yacha, both going into the middle. From the vantage point of the one putting on the tefillin, the parsha appears as follows: Kadesh Li Vayakiv Yacha, Shema Vayam Shema. Now, where does the Rishonim come down on this? Tosfos cites Rav Hai Gaon, who writes that the rule of thumb is that the Havayos, the word Vahaya, like it will be, are juxtaposed. This indicates that the two parshios, beginning with the word Vahaya, should be aligned side by side within the box of the tefillin. This is possible according to the arrangement advocated by Rabbeinu Tam, but not according to that of Rashi, right? The Vahaya and the Vahayas are next to each other, because we said that according to Rabbeinu Tam, Vayam Shamo is on the middle, and the Vayakiv Yacha is also on the middle. So that's the support of the Rav Hai Gaon. However, the Rambam rules that the parshas are to be read inside the tefillin in accordance with their sequence in the Torah, in line with the position of Rashi. Kate said, "Siddur parshas betfila shel rosh. Machdis parsha achrona shehi vayam shama bebayis rishon shu al yamina meniach." It's to the extreme right. Ushma smuchala, and right, Shema is moving in towards the middle. Vayakiv Yacha bebayis shlishi smuchal l'shma bekadesh lebebeis ravi shu l'smola menech tefillin. Kedei she'akor shel fanav pnei hamaniach kor al seder hazeh v'mhichlif siddur zeh psulos. If you do it opposite, it's going to be possible. Several Spanish Rishonim adopt the opinion shared by Rashi and the Rambam, including the Rambam, the Rashba, Rabbeinu Yonah, the Sefer HaChinuch. In fact, the Beis Yosef quotes a story from the Smag, the Sefer Mitzvahs Gedolos, and the Mordechai, all of them Rishonim. Smag is even earlier. The Smag is like in the Gaonic period, according to which Yechezkel HaNavi wore tefillin in accordance with Rashi's approach. Says the Beis Yosef, Rav Yosef Karo, in his commentary on the Tur, the Kos of Smag VaMordechai, Shesholchu Ksav me'Eretz Yisrael, they sent a letter from Eretz Yisrael, Shenafla Biyama Shal, no, Shenafla Bima Shal Kever Yechezkel, a platform from Yechezkel's grave fell. Let's see the footnote. Yechezkel's tomb is assumed to be located in Babylonia and has been documented in sources going back to the times of the Gaonim. Presumably, the rabbis referred to here in Eretz Yisrael obtained information about the tomb from Babylonia where it was located. It's interesting to note as well that the Qumran caves, right, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, contain both Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Okay, so back to the Beis Yosef. Shenafla bima shal kever Yechezkel umatzu sham tefillin yeshonim ma'od keseder Rambam v'Rashi. So it sounds like they found a pair of tefillin there by Yechezkel's grave that was written like Rashi. He was very lengthy. V'docha divrei Rabbeinu Tam. That made divrei Rashi v'Rambam. Uvesofa tshuva kosov. The Rashba wrote at the end of his tshuva. Sof dati noite karashi. V'aramba. V'alei manu somchim. V'osi maisa. V'chen hayu nogim harav Yonah v'Ramban. V'osi maisa ba'atzman ad kan l'shonai. So the Beis Yosef is pretty strong that it seems like they did like Rashi. However, the dispute between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam was not as decisively decided among the Rishonim of Ashkenaz. Accordingly, the Rosh, right? The Rosh was the Talmud of the Marami Rottenberg who lived in Worms. Eventually, the Rosh fled and ended up in Toledo in Spain. But he's really an Ashkenaz posek. According to the Rosh, because he's under the Marami Rottenberg, who's the main Ashkenaz, one of the early Ashkenaz posek. Accordingly, the Rosh writes that a God-fearing person should seek to fulfill the mitzvah according to both views. Says the Rosh, Ulefi shenechlaku b'davar zeh goynei olam, utfilun shel elu psulun la'elu. The problem with the Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi's machlokes is they're mutually exclusive. It means the Rashi's approach would be anathema to Rabbeinu Tam. It would be puzzled. And vice versa, the Rabbeinu Tam to the Rashi people. Chachamim said in the Gemara that there's a place on the head where you could put two tefillins. V'chein b'zro, and in the arm as well. So says the Rosh, Yirei Shamayim Yetze Yedei Shneim. V'yasa Shnei Zugei Tefillin, V'yanich Shneim. You should make two pairs of tefillin. One according to Rashi, one according to Rabbeinu Tam. V'chavim b'shas anachason b'oisun shein ksuvin ketiknan ben ani yotze yedei choivasi ushar hen kirtzu ba'alma. You should have in mind, I'm fulfilling the obligation with these tefillin that are written properly. The other tefillin are just like ritzuos. Because there's no, otherwise it would be Baal Toisef. Ein kan Baal Toisef ella ba'osa hei batan. If you made 5 compartments instead of 4, that would be Baal Toisef. You shouldn't put both pairs in the same kiss. Like one of them are not really holy. You should mark, this is Rashi, this is Rabbeinu Tam. So what's the halacha concerning this dispute? And which tefillin are worn practically? The Shulchan Aruch first cites both opinions, then writes that the universal practice follows that advocated by Rashi. However, the next halacha, he cites the ruling of the Rosh, as well, that a God-fearing person should don both. Seder Anachasim Babatim. Rashi v'Rambam Kadesh mitzmola maniach b'veis hachitzon. V'achra v'haya kivyacha. B'ay sheni. V'shma b'veis hashlishi. V'hayam shema b'veis harevi. Shu b'ais hachitzon liyamino. U'Rabbeinu Tam b'ais hashlishi. V'hayam shema b'veis harevi. Shu hachitzon shma. U'minagaon karashi v'Rambam. The minig is like Rashi. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Yirei Shamayim Yetze Yedei Shneim. V'yasa shtei zugos tefillin v'yanich shneim. Should wear both. V'kavi b'anachasim b'oisum shem aliba de'ilchas ani yotze yedei choivasi. V'asharim kiritzus b'alma. The other tefillins will be just like straps. Ki mokum yesh barosh alech shtei tefillin v'chein b'zroa. There's space on your head to wear both.
So why, if the order is only in the Shel Rosh, and that's where the machlokus is, why do you have to put on 2 Shel Yats?
Don't know. I had the same question.
Yeah.
A lot faster.
See? Hang on. Susie, hang on 1 second. 1 second. Susie? Susie, please answer the front door. Our guests are here. So yeah. My machutanim are here. So anyways, there's a very nice thing here. Tefillin written according to the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam place Shema in the final position of the parshios, like we said, all the way to the left if you look at it straight. unlike the tefillin written in accordance with Rashi, in which Shema occupies the third position. As this difference cannot be seen from the outside of the tefillin, there is a scribal convention which serves as an external visual cue. The calf hair wrapped around the parsha Vayayim Shamoa protrudes from the box in the center of Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, but it protrudes from the left side of Rashi tefillin. So if you look at your tefillin, you'll see there's a calf hair to the left because ours are Rashi, and if it's the Rabbeinu Tam, the calf hair comes out of the middle. You can see that it's coming off to the left. They show you the same picture, but look at your own tefillin, you'll see the same thing. Now, putting on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. From the studies studied so far, it seems that the standard practice clearly follows Rashi, but any God-fearing person should don both. Well, who is included in this description, and when should such a person don Rabbeinu Tam tefillin? In order to better understand this ruling, let's examine some additional sources. The Beis Yosef cites a response of the Maril, who goes a step further than the Rosh. According to the Rosh, it seems that anyone who is God-fearing should don Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. According to the Maril, this practice should be limited only to one who is established and renowned as a pious person. He adds that even one who puts on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam should do so only together with the tefillin of Rashi, or after concluding the tefillah. Umatzati b'tshuva Ashkenazis, right? Shut Maril. Kilosh nazeh shnei zuge tefillin lo chazinan rabbanon kshishi de'avdi hachi. We didn't see the elder chachamim conduct themselves with the two tefillins, and he says the gufa azul basaresha, the body should follow the head, meaning we, the people, should follow the zakenim. The samchila mashakos of Smag vahuda kevedi Yecheskel, right? The Smag was the one who said that the tefillin that they found at the kever of Yecheskel was Rashi tefillin. Gam Rabbeinu Tam asa shelis cholam al kacha. Rabbeinu Tam apparently asked about it in a dream. Uchemedoim ahoil v'lo no mechzi ki yehoira. There is a concept in Allah of a mechzikihur, a person shouldn't look too frum. It's like a regular guy wears a shtreimel or a bekesha, if he's not really that kind of person. So the Maril said, somebody who's muchzik umefursim b'chasidus, someone like that maybe. Mashlaya came kolosum shriisam noagim came. Vanoagim came tov lanichem b'vasachas. He said they should put everything on at one time. If you can't put it on at one time, he says, have Rashi's tefillin on when you say Kriya Shema and Shmon Esrei. In some ways, you're becoming agudos, and you're being porish Shmonat Tzibur. So put on Rashi tefillin. V'achar tefillah yaniach shel Rabbeinu Tam. After Shmon Esrei, you can put it on. And when you're wearing those tefillin, you should say Shema Vayam Shemoah. And the Shulchan Aruch also says, I guess from the basis of this Maril, Lo Yasa Ken El Misha Muzuk Mufursim B'Chasidus. So the Mishnah Berurah discusses under one circumstance that we consider a show of arrogance to put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Cain. Hayinu Afilu. Right, he's commenting on the word of the Shulchan Aruch, Lo Yasa Kain. Hainu afilu im yirtzel anichem rak acharat tefillah. Even if he wants to put it on only after davening. The cost of abeir heitev b'ish echad sheyanoig lanich tefillin Rabbeinu Tam lachat tefillah b'fayes b'fnei hakol. There was a guy who was putting on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin after davening publicly. He was concerned, maybe it's showing off. Pasuk b'tshuvas Marash Halevi. The Mechzikir of Tzarch Shivat Menoga, he said he passed that it is Mechzikir and he should stop doing it. Even if there are a few people in the shul doing it, it's inappropriate because it's Mechzikir. According to the Be'er Mishnah Berurah, there's no room to permit the average person to put on the phone Rabbeinu Tam unless he does so in privacy. However, in our generation, there are communities, particularly Sephardic and Hasidic ones, in which people do have the practice to put on the tefillin Rabbeinu Tam during public prayer. I personally see Chabadniks,
Oh,
Wow, it's very common.
Yeah.
They do.
I see Chabadniks
no, they all put on two pair of tefillin. Automatic.
in Rabbeinu, the Chabadniks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I've seen Chabad people who, when they daven in our shul, sometimes I see them putting on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin.
You make a bracha, another bracha on Rabbeinu Tam?
Hang on, let's get through this. That's a good question. The Yalkut Yosef writes that in light of this development, the concern for arrogance has been reduced. He said the Rav Yosef Karo, who usually the Sfardim will not do anything not that he didn't say, and the Maran said he should be a muchzik umufursim. It's become more common to see people wearing this. Young people, balabatim, yireshamayim. He says, you don't have to worry anymore about arrogance. He says people should be concerned about the poskim who say you should wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Right? The Gemara says, who is a Poshe Yisrael? So the Gemara there answers, a karkafta, skull that never put on tefillin. That's why Rabbi Reichik used to be out in the street putting tefillin on people on the street. They wanted to avoid somebody going through their whole life never putting on tefillin. Well, if Rabbeinu Tam tefillin is the real tefillin, a person never put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, it's a karkafta shloi manach tefillin. Mikomakom bachurim revokim, single guys nochon shloi yanichu tefillin Rabbeinu Tam. Elam ken yodim benafsham shemachashvatim tohera kol zman shetefillin aleim, unless they think only.
I think Chabad single people put it on too. Chabad.
Okay. Okay. So according to Yalkut Yosef, the applicability of Yehora is determined in relation to the prevalent practice. Since some do put on the tefillin Rabbeinu Tam today in certain locales, the notion of arrogance is inapplicable, even if the person is not renowned for his piety. Moreover, a person putting on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam avoids the concern for, quote, a skull that did not put on tefillin, since he has done tefillin properly according to all opinions. The Aruch HaShulchan clarifies that since in some communities it is more common for people to wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, it's permitted to wear them even in other communities. Now, the nispashta becoming medina shemenichet tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, that there are many communities where you see people wearing Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Ein b'zeh yehura. V'yachal kol echad lasos kem v'tov alav bracha. It says everyone can do it and you can have a bracha. Rav Hershel Schechter agrees with the Aruch HaShulchan that no concern for yehura exists anywhere with regard to wearing Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. On the other hand, it seems that the Vilna Gaon did not support wearing Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. The Sefer Keter HaRosh recounts that Rav Chaim of Volozhin asked his teacher, he was the Talmud Muvik of the Gra, if he should put on the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. The Vilna Gaon answered him that if he wanted to truly satisfy the requirement according to all opinions, he would need to put on 24 different pairs of tefillin. Says in the Keter HaRosh,
4 factorial. 4
Huh?
different parshas. It's 4 factorial. You have 24 possible combinations. Because you
Right.
have 4 different parshas, 4 times 3 times 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, Tzurba M'Rabanan, Moy Rabbi, Eina Maniach Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, Kedei Shel Vatel Af Rega Mit Tefillin V'Shel Rashi Iker. He noticed that his teacher didn't put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Rashi explained, he didn't want to waste a minute. Anish B'Lavachi Hineni Mevatel Kameshos Mit Tefillin. He says, but I am a vatal time. Ma B'Kach Im Anichem Eze Shos B'Yom Ve'etzi Yedei Choves Tefillin L'Chol HaDeis. So he asked the Gra, I'm not as careful as you regarding the time. Maybe in the few minutes I have, I'll put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Yeshivo kishetirtzel atzeis l'chol hades titzarch lani chav daled zugos. 24 pairs. Ve'echem etzin chav daled chilukei das betfillin. Where do we see 24 opinions? Amerlo dok v'tishkach. Figure it out. For elaboration on the calculations to arrive at this number, see Rav Moshe Sternberg Hilchos Agra. Uvishromo divrei Elokim Chaim epi Rabbo Zal Posek Balanichon. So he stopped doing it. So when to put on the Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam? The silent position of the Rosh indicates that if someone is motivated to put on the Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, it's best for them to put on together with the pair of Rashi's Tefillin. In this way, is the brachos. This is what Abe was asking. In this way, the brachos recited over the Tefillin of Rashi may directly apply to the Tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam as well. We saw as well that according to the Maril, if a person does not don both pairs in this fashion, he should not don the Tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam during the Tefillah at all, and at the very minimum, not during the time of Kriya Shema and the Amida. However, often the Tefillin boxes are too large to be put on properly together with additional Tefillin. Therefore, many of those who wear the Tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam put them on during the Chazan's repetition of the Amida, or after Tachnun before Ashrei. And these practices are discussed in the Yalkut Yosef. Hanohagim laniach tefillin the Rabbeinu Tam be'emtza tefillah chazar shel hashliach tzibur. He says lo yafa oitzin. The people who put it on during chazar sashat is not good. V'rakim b'mikra hitchil laniach tefillin shel yad shel Rabbeinu Tam u'v'maftiya shma kaddish u'kedusha yaneh. If he happened to put it on, and then he heard kaddish u'kedusha, he can answer. Some put it on after Aleinu. The Londim Imoim Chok LiYisrael v'Chadov. They learn Chok, which is a special type of limud. My neighbor Barry Weiss learns that all the time. It breaks up parshios. There's Zohar and the Gemara. So they learn Chok while wearing those. Echad Amar bevech Yeshun Ragel Anich Film Shalbeinu Tam Koidim Kedushas Uvalat Zion. They put it on right before Valat Zion. So they say Kiddush Achas with that filling. V'chein Roy Lenoig, and he says this is the appropriate meaning. Ulam Kozei Matzibur Kulo Mantim Lanachos Filin Koidim Ashrei. But that's only if the tzibur waits for people to put on tefillin before Ashrei. Well, Yochid Amispal Matzibur. If a Yachid stops, he's not going to get to the Kedusha of Valat Zion. So a Yachid should do it only after Tefillah. The Yalkut Yosef writes on Rosh Chodesh one should put on the Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam before davening Musaf, when the ark is open for the removal of the Torah. The reason for this is that according to the Zohar, there's a spiritual illumination of Yontov during the time of Musaf on Rosh Chodesh. Accordingly, the tefillin are removed then, just as they are not worn on Yontov, and are not put back at all afterwards. Let's final off with a machshava, page 82. Rav Kook discusses some of the philosophical symbolism of the tefillin in his commentary to the Siddur known as Olas Re'iyah. In the piece below, he suggests that the Tefillin Shel Yad serve as a preparatory role for the Tefillin Shel Rosh. In his understanding, the primary purpose of the Tefillin is to allow one to receive divine illumination from above, which takes place through the Shel Rosh. The value of the Tefillin Shel Yad, the Gabi Tefillin Shel Rosh, Domahu le'erech shel hachana shel mitzvah legabi gufa shel mitzvah. Putting on the Tefillin Shel Yad is like being mechin for the goof of the mitzvah. Shat Tefillin Shel Yad b'kedushas pulaso lamatek et koichas hachayim ativim. It's sort of to sweeten the natural force of life in this world, the natural world, shabavaya bechlala, uva'adam bepratios, the world and the individual. He mechino mechasher zesakol ela or elyon. It prepares us for the upper light. Haholech v'shofeh mimokar hakodesh that emanates from this holy source. Shel Shem Hashem Agadol. Hamizgala b'zrak tushaso ayedeo fatosh shel Tefillin Shel Rosh. It actually comes out. It shines through the Tefillin Shel Rosh. She mechuvenet shel makoros haseichel hamachshava haregesh, which sits on our brain, which is the source of our intellect, our thought, our emotion. The kol kochas hachayim. Shemuchanim lios that are ready and prepared to accept the holy light from above. Mizar HaTorah Elokit, the ultimate, it comes the divine Torah, Mizgali, Izgalas, Tamtisus, like the Kedushas HaTefillin. So it's like an antenna. Like we draw it in, we draw the holy forces into our head. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I think we finished Tefillin. We're going to start next week. Hilchos Zmanei Hayom L'Talis U'Tefillin, and all the various details about the Shkia and Nates and all the various debates about time of davening. Any other questions?
There's a story I heard about the Chofetz Chaim that he started to work with Rabbeinu Tam later on in life, and they asked him why he started doing this. He says, "When I come to the Olam HaEmes, if I meet Rabbeinu Tam, how will I feel?"
That's good.
Yeah.
I would tell him, I would say that I was following your grandfather Rashi's ruling, and that's why I didn't follow yours. I'd rather your grandfather.
Good answer.